It did get pretty warped. Or not warped, it's just not on there square. A little bit of chatter, but that's okay. All right, let's see how we did. Take a little bit off the outside, not quite flat. A little bit more off the outside. Sometimes when you do this, especially with different species of wood, you'll run into density problems with the wood, to where, of course, your tool wants to cut into the softer wood more than the hardwood, but you'll learn to figure that out and work with it. Not figuring it out, it's just learning to work with it. Okay, it's nice and flat. Now let's get our lines laid out for the bearing again. And these lines aren't going to be perfectly true, of course, because you saw it when it was spinning when the lines were on there, but it'll be a good guide. Put our brass center in there. And put the outside on there. All right, now that we have our lines back on, we're going to cut the groove for that bearing, and I'm aiming for 3/8 to 7/16, somewhere around there. And I'm just going to use these lines as a guide. You can see they're wobbling because of me taking it out of the chuck. So we'll start coming here like that, and we'll measure. And I'm looking for 7 15/16 is the size of that. And we're a ways away from that. Get in here and get some of this material out first, make it easier to measure. Now, you probably could have done this easier with a router or something else, but this is a lathe video, so we're going to do it on the lathe. And that's about 7 7/8. We have to go a little more. Want to get the outside dialed in before I do the inside. I'll do the outside and get the depth. And then we'll do the inside. Let's see. Just a little more. I think I'm going to have to take that line off, which is a good thing. Means I don't have to sand it off later. And we'll tune up that inside part of this after we get the outside done and get our depth done. Let's see how we're doing on the diameter. And we're right there, 7 15/16. And our inside diameter is going to be 5 5/8. See where we're at. Ooh. Hey, still got quite a ways to go. I think we're going to take that line off too. Nice. Yeah, these diameters aren't critical. I'm going to screw that bearing in when the whole thing's done. That's just right. A little bit more on the inside. Five and 5/8, and slightly under, which is okay. We're right there. So those are good. And our depth, we are at almost 5/16. So we have another eighth to go. I'm going to turn the speed up on this a little bit. I still have a lot more to go. There's 3/8. Let's see what it looks like. Go ahead and put it in there. See if it fits. Yeah, I need to take a little more off the outside. The inside looks good though. So we'll just take another cut on the outside. Remember, it's always easier to take material off than it is to add it. I think I want to go a little. I want to go a little deeper, so that sits in there nice. It has these little silicone feet on it, so that's what it's going to be resting on. I'll take about another 1/16 out of the bottom of that, maybe even a little more. And I always try and make sure that my tool rest is parallel to my workpiece. That way I can use my finger as a guide on the back of the tool rest to make sure I'm keeping everything parallel and flat. Okay, let's see what we got. That's just flush. I think I want to go a little bit more, I think. I think I'm going to go with that. I like that. Next step will be gluing this onto there so we can start building the rest of our vessel, or whatever people call these things. I don't know. Like I said, I'm no professional. I just do this for fun. All right. In my last video, someone asked me how I was putting the back plate onto the tailstock. And the answer to that is this little guy right here. This is what they call a MT2, which this is a Morse taper, number 2 Morse taper, to a 1 inch diameter by 8 thread per inch live adapter. And it has a bearing in it. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to put my other chuck on. And like I've said earlier in this video, these spindle chucks are great for this kind of work. And I'm doing things offhand so I don't get in the camera, so I'm a little awkward here. And that's it. I'm going to put a good coat of glue on here. I'm going to slide the tailstock up, use that for my clamp, and I'm going to screw that down, let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow I'll be cutting the piece like this off the other side, and we'll start building this and do some more turning. All right, our glue is set up overnight, and we're ready to take this off and flip it around. So we're gonna slide that back, take this chuck off, and just take that chuck off and flip it around onto the head. And now I'll take a parting tool and cut this off, and then we'll pour that 1/2 inch hole. I think I'm going to pour it with resin. Well, the parting tool wasn't the safest option. I'm going to go with this flush cut saw instead. You always want to make sure you keep all your fingers and not do anything stupid. If it doesn't feel right, if it feels sketchy, just don't do it. That's my best advice, woodworking advice, safety woodworking advice. But this only takes a second. This actually probably be faster than the parting tool. I love these Japanese flush cut saws. They're great. Come in handy for so many different things. If you don't have one, please get one. If you notice, they don't mar up the wood. There's no set in the teeth. The set is inside the width of the blade. You can use these even on a finished surface and it won't scratch them up. You're probably wondering what this piece of wood, this wood bowl's down here for. It was just something I was playing around turning, but I use it so the saw doesn't hit the bed of my lathe. Just like that. Now I'm going to get the rings cleaned up using a thickness planer. I'm going to turn the sound off for this because this old planer is really loud. To turn the sound off, but my thickness planer's, it's old, pretty loud. Who knows, maybe I'll get lucky and Harbor Freight will send me one of those new Bauer planers they have out. That would be nice. Next, we're going to mount stuff up and start gluing our outer walls up. And remember, when you're using a thickness planer to parallel up and plane these rings down, take very, very thin cuts. You don't want one of these things exploding inside your planer. That'd be a disaster. So just nice thin cuts, be patient, take your time, take several passes. All right, we have all of our material glued up and ready to go. These have been run through the thickness planer. There's another way of doing this. It was in my previous video. If you want to take a look at that, you don't have to run these through a thickness planer. You can do the whole operation on the lathe. I did it through the thickness planer because it was quicker and easier. So we'll start gluing layers on and start turning the body of this. I'll go over real quick how to do this if you don't have a planer. It's fairly simple. You put your back plate on the head. You mount your piece on the back plate. You surface one side. You take it off. You put it on this side. You put your base piece on. You squeeze that on there with glue. You pull this off. Then you turn this surface. And then you do the same thing over and over again until you're done. But I'll show you how I'm doing it on this project. I'm going to put my base on. Going to put the back plate on this side because all my pieces should be nice and parallel. Shouldn't have any problem just stacking them up. I have 11 layers on this project. I'm not going to show this every one. It'd get very repetitive real fast. But you take your piece and you put a center line on one of the segments, and that's going to line up with the joint on the previous layer. And you just stack them up that way. And when you put it on the back plate, make sure your pieces that grab onto this are equally spaced on your segments, and then it will make it centered. And you'll see where it lines up when you're putting it on there. And right like that, all of these are in the same spot. They're not on center, they're slightly off, but they're all symmetrical all the way around, and that's what you're looking for. And make sure it's pressed up tight to the back plate. And you don't have to put a lot of hurt on this, just have to snug it down so it doesn't go anywhere. And if you're worried about how centered it is, you can spin it and see it's pretty centered. And then take your glue, and I always get accused of using too much glue, but I don't care. My stuff doesn't come apart. Glue's cheap. If your project comes apart on your lathe, that gets expensive. Wood's not cheap anymore. And then you find your line. You line it up with the seam. I just snug everything up a little bit, turn it, let that glue smear around real good. Maybe give it a spin. Where's our line at again? There it is. Make sure your line's up, and then you can cinch that tailstock up and get it nice and tight. And you can glue several of these layers on it, one right after the other. Give them an hour to set up, and then put another layer on. Put 2 or 3 layers on, then turn. I wouldn't put them all on and then turn. It's easier if you do a few layers and turn them down, and a few layers. I always do the inside. I do a few layers and then I do the inside, and sometimes I'll save the entire outside to do at the end. But you want to make sure your seams are all split. Adds a ton of strength to it. If all your seams were in line, it's not very strong. And plus, when you're doing multicolored segments using different species of wood, it looks really cool. Gives them a step look. And I wipe off the excess glue, and I come back in an hour and I'll glue another layer on. All right, let's make some chips fly. I've glued 4 layers on here. I just don't like doing the whole inside from, I don't like doing it when it's all the full height. I'm going to have to lengthen my cutter a little bit. And again, I'm eyeballing the bed of my lathe to make sure that my cutter is going in perpendicular. Get some chunks of glue in there. We may have to go after this a different way. It's not wanting to cooperate. Getting a lot of chatter. I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera or not, but you can always do this. Put your tool rest on the inside. I don't think I'll finish it up doing it that way. I guess the chatter's not too bad. Let's try that again. That glue in the bottom, it's a little sticky on the tool. See what that looks like. I'm just going to clean up the inside of this, and I'll get my wall thickness by doing the outside. And if I need to, I'll put a steady rest on this. And needs a little more. Okay, well, I have a little bit more in the bottom here. Need to clean up. It would have been a better option to do this the other way with the tool rest on the inside of this, but for video's sake, I'll do it this way. You'll just have to put up with the chatter. But that's why I'm only doing 4 layers at a time, because the deeper you get into there, the worse that chatter is going to get, and the farther out your project gets, the worse it's going to get. But I'm going to clean up the outside of this too, just in case. I'm going to put 4 more layers on this tomorrow, and then I will turn those, and I want the outside of this to be nice and smooth and round, just in case I have to put a steady rest on it. I will be ending up having to put the tool rest inside to finish this out. I don't think it would be safe to do it any other way. Oh, I have to get a different tool.